Okay, it's Wednesday. You know what that means? Unless you're watching this on YouTube or something and it's not Wednesday for you. But for me, it's a Wednesday. You know what that means? Another episode of Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. Daichi Miller here from Warrior Concepts here in East Central Pennsylvania if you're in the U.S. And if not, if you're visiting, you can always come and visit. Anyway, all right, so this week we're going to be taking a look at the ninja's Sokki-Ken on the list of 16 body weapons that come down to us from the Togakure school. And things kind of cross over through the different lineages over the ages as these schools kind of came together. But Sokki-Ken generally refers to our knee and shin fists. Yeah, I put single quotes because we're going to talk about this, right? So if you're a regular, if you follow us on a weekly basis or follow me on a weekly basis, last episode, we took a look at the Shuki-Ken, right? So the elbow forearm region, right? So this one's going to be pretty similar, okay? But the definition is not the same, okay? So what we're going to be, again, taking a look at is going beyond the obvious. And what we're going to be doing is exploring the inherent power, right, that is in, again, another one of these misunderstood weapons, right, from the ninja's arsenal, and how it's much more than a striking weapon, okay? So, again, going to be taking a look at this weapon, but, well, let me tell you a story, right? And I guess it's not a story, but just like most students and practitioners, right? When I first got started in this art, I was taught that to see the knees and the shins by extension, right, as just striking weapons, okay? And having come from other martial arts, seemed pretty obvious to me, right? Okay, so we're going to be striking the guy, we'll be slamming these knees in, using our shins. Okay, cool. What was neat and nifty, right, as a new student, because a lot of us get all like jacked and all I don't know, warm and fuzzy about Japanese terminology, or if you're in a Chinese martial art or Korean martial art, right? This new name, right? So the knee and the shin are both called Sokki-Ken. Now that in and of itself, that was a little bit problematic for me because I couldn't understand why, right? Because an elbow's an elbow and a forearm's a forearm, just like we talked about with Shuki-Ken, and a knee's a knee and a shin's a shin. So what gives, right? I mean, are we going to be vague? So I had to learn along the way that based on history, right, and historical kind of references, and I'll talk about this a little bit more here as we go, especially for the folks that didn't catch the last episode. The Japanese had a very different way of naming body parts, at least up until the mid 1800s, when Admiral Perry, right, brought Western medicine in medical terms. And even so, the Japanese were really slow to adopt these things. My historical research shows that they weren't fully on board with Western anatomical names and things like that until somewhere around 1920. Okay, so sometimes you just have to kind of understand how these things work, right? So anyway, Sokki-Ken, and this is not Soki, it's Sokki. This is a contraction of two words that are brought together. A lot of Western speakers, English speakers, get thrown off by this, and they're like, well, that's weird. Why would you do that, right? But we do it as well, okay? If we were saying the words, we put two words together, like we were talking about the land out in front, right, of a property or something like that, right? If it's not hilly, right, okay, if that, the area of the ground is really hilly, or it's pitty, or it's got holes in it, or the gophers have torn it up, or whatever, we might say it's level, okay? So it's level land, right? Level land, right? When we say things, unless we're just, I don't know, mush-mouthed or whatever, we hold consonants for twice as long as well, right? Level land. We don't say level land. Level land sounds like somebody's name, right? Bob Leveland. No, level land, right? So it's a contraction, and again, I'll go into that here in just a bit. But let's get back to the striking thing. The striking and slamming, with the knees and whatnot, that held for quite a while until I learned two important lessons. One was that all ninja fists, well, actually all ninja weapons, have multiple purposes, right? They're not just a single purpose item. Even the sword, right? The sword had a larger tsuba, right? Handguard. It was much thicker and whatnot. And the way the sword was built, that way it could be, and the sageo, the cord that normally just fastens it to the belt and whatnot, much, much longer. So it could be used as a trip cord. It could be used to, tie somebody up. A ninja could run toward a wall, stick the sword or toss the sword out so it leaned up against the wall and throw the sageo up over the top of the wall, and then use that handguard as a step to get up onto the wall. And then since the sageo, the cord, had already been thrown up there, now I can just pull the sword back up, right? All kinds of things. But this extends to our fists and body weapons as well, right? They don't just have one purpose, okay? And again, what throws people off is if they're in a striking only or striking predominant art or a grappling predominant art, they tend to see these things in that light, okay? And so it kind of got extended, right? And so we'll talk about some of these as we go, but it's no different for the shins and knees. So I started to learn that, okay, you can pin somebody, or you can use it for leverage or whatever, right? Okay, so if you're a big fan of MMA, you know how MMA came together to fill in the perceived gaps between or in individual arts. And so we'll just pull different things from different arts to spackle the cracks and have something that's a little bit better. But you can still see if somebody's predominantly a striker and they've learned some grappling, or they're predominantly a grappler and they've learned some striking. It's not quite the same. Anyway, so that was the first thing I learned, right? That all ninja weapons have multiple purposes. Okay, the shito is, yes, it's a knife hand, but it's also a form of Sokki-Ken, right? If I use it this way, the finger spear kind of thing. It's also our primary climbing fist, right? Because this is stronger than trying to grab this way. If you can get a handhold, if this is all you can get, well, then that's fine. But this is our primary climbing fist, and it's just because it's stronger and it allows for more surface-to-surface contact, right? So a lot of things work this way. Even the Fudo-Ken, right? There's levering kind of uses for it, not just hitting. So they all work this way, right? So again, learn to, I wasn't just going to be kicking or striking with the knee or the shin. There were these other things, right? But the other thing, the other lesson that got thrown at me was nothing in ninjutsu is what it looks like. So, and this is why I don't get into pissing contests with people who leave comments on my videos, okay? Because they can't find something somewhere, or it's not written exactly that way, because ninjutsu is an art based on principles and concepts, and anything that we see as a technique or something, picture-wise in a book or described or whatever, is an example of how that principle or concept might play out, right? Not everything is listed in catalog, okay? We don't have like 57 blocks and 14 chokes and whatever. Okay, and even the list, right? The list of 16 body weapons, right? There's always something on a ninja list that blows the list open and makes it bigger than what it is, right? And it's not just in ninjutsu. In the Kukishinden school, there's things like that too. There's a list of kamae that you'll find in like Hatsumi Sensei's sword book, right? There's a list of sword kamae, but that's not an inclusive list, right? If you look through the kata, there's other ones in there that aren't on the, let's say, the beginner or the introductory list, okay? So people that are looking to sound like they know everything because it's easy to memorize it, right? Ego loves to do that. They want to memorize it so they can spit it out and sound like they know what they know more than everybody else, or they know exactly what somebody's talking about. Really difficult in ninjutsu, okay? Because that one primary lesson, nothing is ever what it looks like. And if you were on for the last episode, if not, don't worry about it. If you're on YouTube, you can go to the live tab, and you go in there and you'll see a running list of all of our Monday Kuden podcast episodes, and they just alternate, right? So there's a Kuden, there's a Whiteboard Wednesday, there's a Kuden, there's a Whiteboard Wednesday, right? You just need to go back 1 week and you'll find where we worked on the Sokki-Ken, right? But it was the same thing there, where there's more to it, and it's actually what the name is pointing to, and I'll get that here in a bit. Okay. So anyway, but don't forget, while we're here, before I jump into this thing completely, don't forget, like, share, subscribe. You know how the game works, right? Help me get this information out to other people who really need it. Okay. All right. So let's start with the way most people see the Sokki-Ken, right? See this weapon, right? They see it as just the knee, just like I did, right? They see it as just the knee. And then by extension, a lot of them will see it as the knee shin, but there's that, right? So, but again, it's a region, right? So in ancient Japan, just like with the Sokki-Ken, right? Things were named more for functionality than they were named for specific point, okay? So the Sokki-Ken region of the legs, right? I don't know if you've been around for a while, ashi may have thrown you off, because ashi means leg, but it can also mean foot, right? That part up to where the toes connect, right? Well, how the hell can it mean leg and foot, right? A foot's a foot and a leg's a leg. Again, it's a region, right? So I'll try to pick my leg up here back far enough here, right? So the Sokki-Ken runs from just above the kneecap on the thigh, right above where their stabilizer muscles, right? That's not what they're called Latin, but anyway, just above it, all the way through the kneecap, and then down to, if you look at the back of your leg where the calf rounds out and then plugs into the Achilles tendon on the way down to the heel, right? So the calf rounds out and it goes down. Unless you've got chicken bird legs and your legs are just freaking straight, you can't see where your calf is. In which case, Google somebody else's leg. But where it rounds out, go to the front face of the shin, that up across the kneecap to that point on the thigh I just pointed to, that whole region was Sokki-Ken. Okay, so it could be knee, it could be shin. This happened a lot, right? Koshi, we know in Japanese now, koshi means hip. What we think of as a hip, right? The hip joint, right? But you look at koshi nage from way back in the day, right? Hip throw. Be careful, right? This is one of those things that got me for a long time, because I used to try to contort myself to get my hip right there, except that koshi, again, was a region that went from here down to that point where Sokki takes over. Okay, so you can use the side of your thigh. It can be all the way up here. So it's very, very different. Okay, so but again, it's a region, right? So just a quick history lesson there, if you care, right? But if you were to look up knee or shin in today's world in Japanese to English dictionary or something like that, right? Or English to Japanese, however it's going to work, right? So the word for knee in today's world, the actual, what we think of as a knee, is not Sokki, it's Hiza. Hiza, okay? And the word for shin, right? And there's a couple of different kind of things, because it just means the front part of the leg, and it's implied that it's between the knee and the foot, okay? So there's a couple of words, but the most general one that you're going to find, right, is sune. Sune. Yeah, sune. Okay? Sune. Either way, what we're looking at here from this perspective, right, this omote perspective, right? Okay? So this is the what, right? What we're going to do with it, right? So based on our ura and omote, front, back, obvious, hidden kind of perspective, what we're looking at is what we can do with it, right? What we can do with either one of these, okay? So if we're thinking about it from that direction, then what we have are things like, and I'm going to put several in the same line because they're the same thing to me, right? Blocking, covering, shielding. Okay? I don't care what word you use, right? We don't block with a leg. Yeah, well, maybe we should have more examples of those kind of things, because I see guys in UFC and MMA fights all the time getting the sides of their freaking legs just jacked because somebody will come in with a shin kick, right? Slam the side of the knee, and that knee will buckle and they'll just keep on going. As a matter of fact, I was just listening to an interview with one of these fighters where their opponent, they won the match, but their partner just kept slamming into the side of their leg, and they were in excruciating pain. The knee was swelling up, all that kind of stuff, because a lot of these guys, they don't have a defense for that kind of thing because it's coming in at an odd angle, right? And so it's one of the purposes, one of the reasons for using a hicho, right? Back up here a little bit, right? Using this position where the leg comes up, so we can bring the shin up or we can bring the knee or whatever, even if you just turn it sideways, so that the softer bone or the softer part of their leg runs into something hard, right? This is in Sun Tzu's Art of War, right? Using strong points against weak points, right? Because the side of the knee, that meniscus is just there to keep the knee from slipping out sideways, right? You get a meniscal tear and freaking knee's never going to be the same again, right? So, but covering, again, if I'm in hicho, right, I'm in this kind of position and my leg is up, yes, it's prepping to kick, but a lot of people get this wrong where they have the knee up, they have it in a position where it's up, but they're not paying attention, and there's a straight line shot right into the groin, right? So the knee shin should be slightly turned in. If you put the arch of your foot on top of the ball of your calf, right, you just put it on there. One, your balance will be better because you'll be tricking your body into believing that you're actually standing on a higher step, okay? And you're not standing on one leg, okay? So I put the arch on the ball, on the top of the ball, the calf, right? So it goes there, which means that my foot is going to be turned at a slight angle, which should match the angle of my arm, okay? Because this is a Gyokuryu thing, right? But the knee is turned ever so slightly in. I'm back out here just enough. It's turned ever so slightly in, so it creates a cover, right? It creates a difficulty for the attacker to get straight in with a groin shot or something like that, okay? But there's lots of examples in certain forms of Chinese Kung Fu where a kick comes in or whatever, and that leg comes up, right? Just take it on the side of the thigh that kind of jams it, but you can also change the angle of your shin so that the softer part of that leg, because remember, they're trying to use hard or strong points against weak points, so it's the shin bone against the ribs or the Charlie horse point or something like that, right? But we know how sensitive and weak the shin bone is. If you've ever tried to walk through your house in the middle of friggin' night and somebody changed the furniture earlier in the day, and it's been the same way for 6 months to 6 years, and they moved the coffee table and you freaking banged your knee or your shin into that coffee table, you know exactly what that feels like, okay? So if we can position something so that that shin runs into that instead, right? The knee is designed to, that part of the knee is designed to bump into the world forward, right? Not that you want to screw up your kneecap or whatever, but it's a much smaller, denser bone than this thing, right? So anyway, blocking, covering, shielding, okay? The elephant in the room, right, is striking. I probably should have put this up first, okay? So we can do shin kicks, we can do knee strikes, those kind of things, right? I start people off with this in Mod 1 because it's the obvious, right? So this is our close range stuff. Shins are mid range, and then snap kicks, front kicks, those kind of things, right? Instep, toe stabs, whatever. That's all long range kind of stuff, right? You forgot stomp kick, sensei. Soku-Yaku-Ken. No, Soku-Yaku-Ken actually is a mid range kick that fits in between, in the distance where you're just too far for a knee strike, but you're too close to deliver like a front snap kick or something like that. So the secret of a Sokki-Ken, these front stomp or stamping kicks, right? It's supposed to fit in that range where he would never expect a kick to happen. Okay? Again, nothing in Ninjutsu is what it looks like. Okay, so striking, we have leverage. Okay, so an idea of leverage, well, just anything to do with kansetsu waza. Kansetsu waza is joint manipulation techniques, right? So I'm gonna go back to Hicho again, right? One of the things in the Gyoko Ryu was once you took somebody down. Let's say I did Jigoku Otoshi, throwing or dropping him into hell, or in one of these things, one of these throws, he goes down and his arm, I've got his arm, his chest is pointing away from me. I can just bring my leg up into Hicho while holding onto the upper arm, because I'm going to slide my kneecap right up his upper arm to his elbow joint. And now I've got this arm bar on him, right, where I can just stand this way and I can scan, okay, or I can use my shin instead. I can just turn it to an angle and catch that space back here, right? Another example of it, again, that I give my guys in Mod 1 is basically an arm bar to the leg. There's this technique, one of the names for it, there's lots of names for these things, but one of the names for it is ashikage. I'll just put it on here. Ashi, leg, kage. Okay? So this is referring to my leg, not his. It's not the technique. I mean, it is the technique, but it's not pointing to what I'm doing to his leg. Okay? So ashikage is where I slip in and my leg comes in at a diagonal across his leg, and then I just drop, and of course that makes your knee flex out right through his knee, creates this lock on the leg, right? It can also snap the knee, but either way, the way we do it in training for safety is it locks it out and it causes him to drop on his tailbone, right? So again, just this little sneaky leveraging kind of thing, right? So blocking, striking, leveraging, trapping, right? Well, how is this not leverage, Sensei? Well, a lot of these things cross over, but what I want to take a look at is the what. What are you trying to do? Okay, because ultimately we're always using positioning in kamae. The limb is always moving like it's striking, right? And then these other things, yeah, leverage is going on in some form, okay? But we have all these names for what the leveraging is doing to them, right? So in this case, right, trapping, again, one of the things that I could do is use both legs, okay? So where this ashikage is my one leg against his one leg. But again, I do a throw, I take him down or something like that, and his, just his body position, right? I'm able to put one leg against, or one arm against my lead leg, and I'm trying to lever him. But if any of you have watched any of the videos or you're in the online programs and you've seen my one guy, James Alexander, right? James is like 6'3". I'm like 5'6" and change, barely change, right? So I take James down, he's got long arms, right? So I go to do this kansetsu waza here, and I'm not getting enough. So what I can do is pass my leg over. So now the elbow part is up against the shin or the knee of my lead leg, but my rear, the other leg, right, the hand forearm, I've got it here, just as if I were going to catch somebody, right, for an arm bar this way, right, just using my legs, right? I'll talk about this more here in just a minute, but we can do that, or we can trap a limb against his body, okay? So maybe I take him down and I'm kneeling, and then I just move my leg, my knee, right up against his arm, so it's pinned against his body, okay? So it's stuck in there, at least for half a second, so I can do the next move, and he can't get out of there, okay? So it's that kind of thing, right? There's lots of examples of these, okay? And then the last one here is pinning, okay? So I could be kneeling on something, right, to pin it to the ground. I could be laying my knee or my shin across his throat or his neck, or even on the side of his head, right, to do a choke. The word for choking in Japanese is jime or shime. And while we tend to think of choking as always to the neck and cutting off the blood or the oxygen, the word jime or shime means to wring or constrict something, okay? So you can choke any part of the body because it's like a constrictor snake. Whatever it goes around, it's just going to constrict it. So you're putting crushing pressure from multiple sides, right? So again, we can choke, we can crush, that kind of thing. There's a cool variation. I think it's cool. But anyway, there's a cool variation of this take-ori, right? Take-ori means breaking bamboo, right? So most people know it as like a gooseneck come along or something like that, where it's this way. But take-ori, there's a piece about take-ori that a lot of people miss. And while they think of folding, right, the reason it's called take-ori, take means bamboo, ori means breaking, right? So breaking bamboo, okay? Well, bamboo's not wood, bamboo's grass, right? Well, what the hell does that mean, Sensei? What it means is it doesn't break the same way that wood does, okay? So bamboo, the reason why it's used for scaffolding and things like that in Asia is because it can flex really, really, really far and bend really, really far, kind of like a fishing fly rod, those kind of things, right? Because you can't break it this way. You can't snap it like we can when we're dealing with like trees or branches and things like that, okay? To break bamboo, you have to twist it, okay? It has to be twisted, right? So, excuse me, when we do a take-ori, free lesson, we do a take-ori, we're not just folding. Notice how this part of my hand is on, and it should be, right? The force on the fold should primarily be on the metacarpal. So it's the second metacarpal. There's the first one. Second one, right behind the index finger. So when I fold this down, I pull into position, right? It's not just folding this way. It's also, get to an angle where you can see this, it's also twisting it. So there's at least two locks going on at the same time. There's the folding, or if we use a kind of an airplane joystick reference, which is how I was taught to do Kansetsu Waza to the wrist. Okay, there's three primary directions. I've had as many as 5 locks put on my wrist, not exactly at the same time, but really, really close. Okay, but the 3 primary ones are pitch. So on an airplane, right, if I move the stick back and forth this way, right, okay, it makes the plane go up and down. Okay, so there's pitch. Okay, there's yaw, which is this way. Okay, so if I move the stick this way, right, then the plane turns this way. And then there's rotation. Okay, so if I can get 2 or more of those, the scrolls in the Tagagi Yoshin say 3 or more at the same time. Okay, even in Kotoryu and some of the other ones, when you're breaking balance, you break 3 lines of balance either at the same time or consecutively, so that he can't adjust. His body can't figure out the way out because it has too many contradictory things going on. So the brain can't produce a solution for the muscles to fire right. Okay. Anyway, hidden stuff. I have weird hobbies. What can I tell you? Okay. So it's like that, but it looks like it's a variation of an omote gyaku. Okay. So what I'm doing with the person is I start to do an omote gyaku. He's still coming, so I run this up and over his head. So it's a combination omote gyaku, o gyaku, if you know what that is, right? Where you catch the shoulder joint by keeping the arm straight. So there's an arm bar going on. So it's this way, and you take the person down. Or once you take him down, the arm is kind of up over his head. So if you can lean, he's on his back. Take the arm back here, there's going to be a natural bend right here. So if I lay my shin or my kneecap right there and flatten this down to the ground, his shoulder, elbow, or wrist will tear apart. Usually more than one, okay? Because the body doesn't bend that way, okay? So it's one of those ways to kind of put that finish on. A lot of folks don't know how these things kind of work because there's always soft training going on, and there's no pain allowed, okay? I'm not saying that everybody has to be like tough and rough and those kind of things, but yeah. So anyway, all right. So these are the conventional uses, right? That everybody knows about. Well, most people know about. Most people know about striking. Okay. Most people know about leveraging. Some people know about the trapping and the pinning. Some people know about the blocking, covering, shielding, those kind of things, right? So right here should be enough for, I would say, the average student based on my experience. Okay. And if you're above that and you already have all these things, fantastic, right? We'll see what happens on the next one. But there should be at least one thing in here for every student that they could start to work on to add to their skill proficiency and ability to use their knees and shins to gain a better advantage in a bad situation. Okay. All right. So conventional uses, right? So this is the what that we can do with it, right? Okay. So during this Friday's class, right, there's that little virtual thing. Our Friday advanced class, our master's class, springboards off of what I teach on Whiteboard Wednesday. So if you're new to this, this is how it works. I teach the big picture. I know a lot of people sign in. I see the numbers going up and going back down again. People sign in because they think that there's going to be a trained dancing monkey teaching them the moves here. But this is for the smart people. So this is the strategic thinking and tactical application for making it work better. And then Friday, right? Anybody wants to join into class, right? $9 US. It just covers my cost for the services, because even these free things that I'm doing, I pay for the services that allow you to have it for free, right? So, so on Friday, the students work on examples of these things. So we're gonna be doing a bunch of these things. So we're gonna be doing techniques that involve many of these. Probably not all, because we only have 75 to 90 minutes to do it all, but we're going to have a bunch of these things in there. And then, right, we really want to make sure that students get that part as well. Okay. So again, let's back up here a little bit, because we talked about in the beginning, right, the name for it in our martial art, right? The name for this region, shin, knee, is Sokki-Ken. Soku-Ki. It's a contraction. This is a contraction. Okay? So Soku and Ki are brought together. Okay? But we already learned that Ni is Hiza and Shin is Sune. So what the hell? Right? Well, that's where we are, right? So the contraction is Soku and Ki. Right? So this kanji for Soku, people are used to saying like soku-yaku, soku-gyaku, right? Which is another way to say foot or sole of the foot, or a position on the foot, that kind of thing. Yeah, no, different kanji. Okay, different kanji. So just like when we took a look at Shuki-Ken, elbow wasn't in there at all. Okay, so soku, the word soku means immediate. Okay, it can also mean instantaneous. It might be nice if I could spell. Instantaneous. Okay. Ki means spirit or energy. Okay. Energy. Okay. So Soki together means immediate or instantaneous spirit or instantaneous energy, immediate spirit, that kind of thing. And then Ken is fist, but in ninjutsu, by extension, Ken is a general term used for any weapon. I know, it throws people off. Ken is a sword, man. It's a blade. It's a whatever. Okay. So again, people have a hard time disconnecting from this is this and nothing else, and getting their head wrapped around principles and concepts that allow them to operate very much like a James Bond or a MacGyver or a ninja, where they don't need the specific thing. They understand how the principles and concepts work, and therefore that thing could look how many different ways. Okay, so Sokki-Ken, right? So it's not, we're implying the knee or shin on an omote level. Okay, but it's the immediate spirit or instantaneous energy fist or weapon. What the hell's up with that? Okay, well, what this implies, right, this points to, is a technique that emphasizes quick and immediate strikes or whatever we're doing, executed, swift, quick, whatever word you want to use, right? Reaction, decisive intent, right? In a combat situation where you don't have time to get around, to get ready, to whatever, okay? So this technique is geared towards reacting like right away, right? You need to move, you need to move. Those of you who are going right now through the Mod 3 training, whether you're in-house in the dojo or you're going through the Dominate and Win version of it online, right? This fire element, right? Of just, you got to go, right? Things have to move, right? There's no wind up. It's not like a teenager cleaning their frickin' bedroom, or I don't know, a 50-year-old teenager, right? Where they have to get around to get ready, or I don't feel motivated. Who gives a shit? Okay, in a fight or in an attack situation, he's hoping you're not motivated. He's hoping you're terrified. He's hoping that you have brain cramp and you forgot all your shit, right? He's hoping, right? So that's called universal justice. Okay. So again, it's reacting like right away, right, to an opponent's movements or openings or whatever, right, and delivering strikes or whatever your technique is with no delay, no space in there. There's no gap, right? When it's time to move, you move, okay, and things get where they need to go right away, okay. So as a technique, we need to understand the use of the legs. We need to understand how they work, that kind of thing, right? In the Gyoko school, and I covered, there was a Whiteboard Wednesday that I covered a bunch of weeks ago, where we covered one of the 8 kihon, right? And I don't mean the techniques that people think that they've got memorized. I mean these areas of study and research and development, proficiency. Ultimately, they all cross over and just becomes you, right? But one of those areas is called ho-ho, right? And no, it's not Santa Claus's laugh, right? Ho-ho. Ho-ho is about the use of the legs, understanding how they work, understanding the anatomy and the physiology of them, understanding how they can be damaged, so you can use that against him, those kind of things. But ho-ho doesn't literally point to the leg, just like we're going to be going beyond here. Ho-ho, the second ho in ho-ho is actually a longer hole, right? That kind of thing. It means way, it means truth, it means like how you would do something, right? Like a method, right? So, but the first hole, that's not a different way of pronouncing the word ashi for leg. It's not the same. Hole implies walking. It implies hiking. It implies like going away, leaving, that kind of thing, right? So that hole, that kanji, points to things we do with the legs. So this is what we do with them here, right? But this one over here is how we use them, right? So this is more of a how, right? This is use, okay? So this is the Una side of things, okay? Any trained monkey can strike with the knees or the shins. They can lever. Anybody can learn techniques, okay? But how do I make these things move? Especially this one. How do I get them to move immediately? How do I get them to move with no wind up? How do I get them to move so I can move lightly, freely, but I'm still stable, on balance, and in control? Okay? And I know you're learning this from a fat guy, but if I can do it, there shouldn't be any reason why anybody else can't do it. Okay? So what gives, right? Not about the fat. That's anyway. So and again, this can be extended beyond the use of the legs, right? If you remember, if you were on for last week's with the Sokki-Ken, That extended way beyond the legs as well, or beyond the arms, the forearms and the elbows as well. So we'll get to that at the end here, right? But what I have are 4 perspectives, 4 things, 4 considerations. Maybe I should use that word here instead, but I didn't want CONS and CONV to my abbreviations to fit on here. My board's only so big, right? So, but these are considerations, things that we're going to be doing with the legs, regardless of whether we're doing combat things or we're doing everyday life things. Because as Hatsumi Sensei just constantly reminded us, when lessons would come up, he'd do this long spiel about a given thing. And it sprang off of a demonstration of a technique, and people were screwing it up and whatnot. So, you know, he would go into this thing, and then at the end, very often he would say, not just a good martial arts idea, good life idea. Okay, Shirai Sensei would do that. Trying to remember one of the other ones that might have done it, like Seno Sensei or something like that. But Shirai Sensei and Hatsumi Sensei, big time. Okay, so this is where we're going to look. Okay, so I'm going to write down some words that are going to look like, well, it's a use. Yeah, no, it's not that. Okay, so I'm going to give you something to kind of lock onto. Right. So the first one is walking. Okay, but I'm not talking about walking because everybody thinks they know how to walk. Okay, and Hatsumi Sensei was, whenever he would talk about walking, he'd say the problem with most people is they never learned how to walk. They didn't learn how to walk. They didn't teach themselves how to walk either. What they learned how to do was get from point A to point B without falling down. Okay? So they learned how to neutralize the force of gravity, but they didn't learn how their legs work and their body works and things like that, so that they could have their legs carry the torso. Okay? And you can tell when somebody has mastered the use of their legs and their legs are carrying the torso, right? From here up isn't involved in the process. When somebody has mastered walking, their arm swing reduces to almost zero and they don't look stiff. They're not forcing their arms to not bend, right? They just move because their legs are moving underneath. The feet are doing their things. The ankles are doing their things. The knee, calf, shin section is doing its thing. Right? In Taijutsu, 90% of your movement, 90% is from the hips down. 70% is from the knees down. Okay, so if not, then we're constantly fighting gravity. And I don't know, was it 10, 20 years ago, I saw this report that anthropologists figured out why human beings swing their arms. Right? We swing our arms to counter the sway and whatnot when we walk. And there were some students and we were out. I don't know where we were, but we saw this news thing. It was in a paper or magazine or something. Somebody pointed it out, and they said, "Oh, scientists figured out why we swing our arms." And a bunch of us just smiled and said, "Oh, really? Did they?" Right? No, they rediscovered. Right? But ninja and warriors in general have known this for a long, long time. Okay? So what happens for most people, though, is they either lean one direction or another, or they pitch, and then their legs get up and under them. Okay? We know this because when they catch a crack in the sidewalk or whatever, they take a huge spill. And it's not that if you're carrying your body with your legs, if you bump into that crack, your body won't go. But if your legs are the primary locomotion device, when you catch that crack, while your body's moving, your leg will independently move into that new position to catch yourself instead of swinging like a pendulum. Okay, so just like in the scrolls, we're supposed to be moving on bending knees, not just bent knees. Bent, for those of you who are English majors, bent is an adjective. It describes something. Okay, so the knee is bent, but bending is a verb, right? It's active. It's doing things, right? So very different. And it's not just in ninjutsu. If you ever watch any of Patrick Swayze's movies, especially when he was doing martial arts stuff. He was in a movie called, well, it was one called Footloose, but there was another one, was the Roadhouse, right, where he was a bouncer. And I don't know if anybody who knows who this actor is knew that he was never supposed to walk, let alone do martial arts or dance or whatever, because he was born with his legs all screwed up and a bunch of surgeries and whatever. Okay. But if you watch him, because of his birth defect and repairs, his walking was much more animated, and it's easy to see it. Right. And you will see him rock on the bottoms of his feet like rocking chair rungs, and his knees move much more animated, right? So it almost looks like from the knees down, he's pedaling a bicycle. Right? This is how I was taught by Shrey Sensei and Hatsumi Sensei to move the legs. Okay? So the torso isn't pitching and leaning every time you move. Okay? Which means you're in a constant state, not you, because you guys are enlightened, but that means the average human being isn't walking so much as they are in a state of controlled falling. Okay? And they're just keeping the feet up under them. Okay? So it's very, very different, right? So anyway, walking, right? This is about how we carry the body with the legs, right? We're not lumbering side to side, okay? All right, next one, quick, immediate movement. Quick, I should probably add another word here to my notes. Quick, light, not heavy. Immediate movement, okay? So we're not pitching with the torso first before the legs moves. We're not doing that kind of thing, right? We can, the whole thing, right? One of the first things I learned in Taijutsu was the whole leading edge of the body needs to move at the same time. So if I'm going back into Ichimonji, right? I turn this way so you can watch this whole edge right here. Everything moves at the same time, right? So, but if I move the leg before I move the torso, or I move the torso before I pick up the leg, see, this moves farther and first. This is behind as a target, right? Or I might move this way because I just moved my foot away from me, and then I got to pull my head away. Well, the whole time I just did that, I threw my face, or at the very least kept it in line for that punch to hit it, right? This whole edge needs to move at the same time. If I'm moving forward in a Jumonji, everything needs to move at the same time. It's not this, right? It's straight in. The whole spinal column moves at the same time, okay? And that's a product of legs. And you can tell when somebody's not using their legs, because when I make that correction in class, everything up here stiffens up, right? Because they're trying to keep this from moving and have the legs catch up, and that's just a perfect sign that they initiate with their torso. They move from the top down instead of, all of our lineages have you move from the ground up, right? So the feet up, move, right? All right, so quick, light, immediate movement, right? So this one is a product, right? It's a byproduct of balance and proper posture. And of course, knowing how the different muscles fire. Your knee initiates movement, right? The knees always move first. The foot moves like a rocking chair rung from heel to toe, this way, not this way, right? So it's use of legs, posture, and what I say, oh, balance. And balance is balance and posture. You have balance because the posture is all the blocks stacked on top of each other, neutralizing the force of gravity on the body. Okay. So these are, walking is about carrying the torso on the legs, right? The torso's not doing that movement. That way the torso's free to go profiled. That torso's, the limbs are free to extend and retract because the legs are doing their thing. The torso's doing its thing. The limbs are doing their thing. Okay. Quick, light, immediate movement is based on posture, balance, those kind of things, right? Okay. Next one, The elimination of windups, okay? No windups, okay? No tells. You know what tell is? Or I'm going to evade. Gee, I wonder if he's going to go that way. So can we flip that on people? Yeah, but we don't bother trying to flip things on people until we can actually do it properly on the omote side, because what happens is ego will use the, oh, well, I was just trying to trick him. No, you weren't. Okay? That looks different. Right? So no windups, no tells. Okay. So here's what I mean with the legs, and you can see just off my legs, right? So if I'm going to do a knee strike, I'm not winding up to do a knee strike. I'm not leaning to do a knee strike. I'm not pitching my body before the shin goes out. Those are all windups. There's two movements, right? 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Okay? He's only going to be there for 1. If he's there for 2, and you've been fighting people like that your entire life, and you've been, everything's been fine, okay? Just remember that they move, they violate all these rules too. So the reason it's working is you're just faster at them while breaking these rules. You're just faster than them. Okay? When you come across somebody, and this is what happens when you train with senior master teachers who have their shit together. When you train with a Daishihan, you train with Soke, whatever. Okay? If you have any of these things, you're going to lose. Okay? Or if he's just faster at it, you were used to being faster, that's why you won your fights. But if he's faster, well, then you lose. Okay? Okay? But again, remember, this stuff was developed back in the Sengoku Jidai Warring States period, which means if you lost, you were dead. There was no smack talking afterwards. There was no requesting a rematch. There was no sport aspect to it. Okay, so all this stuff was designed for, there ain't no do-over. Okay, so, and my perspective on this stuff was, when I talk about self-defense, I'm not using that as a substitute for the word fighting. Fighting's a contest. Okay? I don't care. You guys have heard me say this over and over and over again. If you're a regular, I'm not fighting over the girl on a Friday night. My wife wouldn't appreciate that anyway, but you get the idea, right? I'm not fighting this guy for the girl. I'm not arguing with somebody to win the argument. I'm not arguing with my wife because I want the new car to be an SUV of this color, and she wants a new car. Actually, she would want the SUV. But anyway, that's if there's 2 or more combatants with only 1 prize, that's a contest. That's a fight. Self-defense situation, you got 2 or more combatants, at least one of those people, the defender, doesn't want to be there. And so they may do the same kind of techniques, but the goal isn't to win. The goal is to get the hell out. The agenda is very different. People that are fight or fighter minded have a hard time getting their head wrapped around that, because to them, this just sounds like BS double talk. Okay? Because they don't understand the difference, and that's fine. Okay? It's just like I don't have a conversation with my 5-year-old about working on my car because he doesn't understand how the damn thing works. So he comes up with all kinds of freaking ideas, okay, based on his Matchbox cars. No idea. Okay? So I don't have discussions with some of these other folks either. Okay? So walking, torso gets carried on top of the legs, quick, light, immediate movement. This has to do with balance and posture, body alignment, understanding how the legs work and using them correctly. No wind up, no tells, right? This is about being able to move things together. The word in the scrolls is onaji, still used in Japanese. Onaji, same time. Everything moves, same time. But you're still quick, right? As I add these things don't go away. What happens in training is you have to isolate something, and you'll try to do this and realize, well, shit, I'm not moving quickly. I'm not moving it light. I'm stiffening up and all that. So it's got to have something to do with either posture or the way I use my legs or my balance sucks or whatever, right? But ultimately, these things are all codependent. They're like, you ever see a jigsaw puzzle? A lot of pieces look like the tab fits into the slot of the other one or whatever, but there's only one right answer. Okay, so they fit into each other. This is screwed up, that's going to be screwed up. If this is screwed up, that's going to be screwed up. If these are screwed up, it's because that's screwed up. Okay. Let's see. What do I have here? No wind up, no tells. I thought I had one more. I do. All right, there we go. All right. So I already covered this because it's all a byproduct of freaking bad walking and bad posture, right? No pitching, leaning, right? Do I have anything else in there? Or otherwise needing a 1-2 timing. I already talked about that. I just didn't write it down, okay? So there is no pitching or leaning or the requiring or the needing of a 1-2 movement before the kick or the knee is launched. It is direct, okay? So from right here, if I'm moving, a grappling situation with somebody, right? My knee should be able to just pop up into place with that. Did you notice that my head sunk a little bit, but there was no leaning back? There was no, because if I'm trying to neutralize the push and pull that he's doing on me, if I lean, I'll be lucky if the knee lands, but I'm now off balance even more, right? It's firing these lower muscles, right? Your kicking muscles are your lower abdominal muscles. That's not here where the belly button is. That's not up here. It's right in there. They cover your pelvic bone. Those are your kicking muscles. You need to be able to move those, right? And move that leg in whatever direction it needs to go without pitching. Okay? If you need your torso to move your legs, Taijutsu mastery is not very close. Okay? Taijutsu mastery begins and ends with walking, just like Taijutsu mastery with your kamae and postures begins and ends with shizen. Okay? You start with shizen and you end with shizen tai because that's an integration of all the other kamae that you have learned, right, along the way, right? You don't need the reference points. Okay, so remember that I said some point back that this wasn't limited to the legs. It's not, okay? The better I am with this stuff here, then I will be able to move instantaneously and immediately when I need to strike, okay? Most people get that with a jab, but to do it with a lunge punch, the elbow lifts or the knee shift, right? Or they do a step and then no. When the step happens, this is me. I know I'm stepping off frame and I apologize. I only have so much space right here. Okay? Otherwise, I'll be tiny and you won't be able to read the board. Okay? So please, if you're trying to learn off of YouTube videos or whatever, that's fine. Do you? The problem with that is you can't ask the teacher a question while you're busy trying to work it. But if you're doing that, watch. Okay? I know we watch to learn new ways to do these things because that's the tricky shit. But to be able to do this stuff without getting your ass handed to you because, right, he was faster or whatever. What makes him faster is he's either better at the muscle contraction or he has more fast twitch muscles that are stronger and can do it, right? It is what it is, right? But it's actually this stuff. So watch for this stuff, okay? I had one guy one time, everybody he saw online, oh, he's good. He's good. He's good. What tells you that he's good? Well, he got these tricky moves. I watch some of the same ones. It's not that he doesn't have skill. It's he knows the technique, but I'm watching for the shoulders pitching. I'm watching for the head leaning in as they're stepping back into kamae, or them leaning back and things like that, right? That they got good at doing the technique based on mediocre body movement. but as long as they don't have to leave the dojo, everything should be fine. Okay. All right. Anyway, that's what I have, right? So this time, Sokki-Ken, I don't know what I'm doing next week. But if you want some technique examples, even if you're just focused on this stuff, you want some technique examples, or you want to hear me pointing things out to students, and you want to see examples, because one of the reasons why it's on Zoom and students get to see things is students get to watch themselves on video later, because they're all recorded. So even if you can't make it, you get the recording. They can watch it later and critique themselves, because they'll now then know what I see, right? But you seeing other students moving around and me making the corrections, you'll be able to better see what it looks like. Okay, all right. And I know I keep paring my back to you, right? So this is one of our official school T-shirts for the dojo, training T-shirts. So if you're like jazzing about it, it says 9 paths. I'm sorry. 9 schools, 1 path, or something like that, right? 1 goal. And so there's just these like placards like they would carry on a battlefield that has the 9 schools listed, right? So if you're interested in anything like that, if you go to wcidragonsden.com, we got all kinds of cool shit. T-shirts and coffee mugs, and wall art, and all kinds of stuff, right? And if not, you do what everybody else does and just do screen grabs and steal shit. Right. But either way, so this is what I have for this time. If it works for you, great. If not, no harm, no foul. Check in on the next one, or if this is the straw that broke the camel's back because you already knew all this stuff and I'm not teaching anything new or presenting anything new, then just save yourself the time, right? Ignore the next email that comes out or unsubscribe from the list or whatever. It won't hurt my feelings, I promise. Right? I'm here to help those who want the help, not those who are just running around trolling and they're just waiting to drop shitty comments on somebody's video, or I don't know, they're watching this because it's better than the hour of work they just got out of whatever. Okay, so anyway, that's what I have. Hopefully I'll see you again next week. Don't forget we have a couple of things coming up, so if you're past the dates that I'm about to mention, ignore them, right? Because it doesn't matter anymore, okay? But tomorrow, Thursday, July 25th at 8 p.m., I am doing a online workshop or online webinar on this Fudo Myo character and his connection with Ninjutsu, and how some of the practices for Fudo Myo that's in our Mikyo can be used to actually develop even more than this, right? The invisible side of training. And that's kind of a launching board to a 15-week course that we're doing, not just on Fudo, but he's a part of it. So that's there. There's emails that are going out and whatnot, but I'll try to make sure that things go out or go in the description. It's going to be on a deadline. So I guess the quickest way would be to just go to onlineninjaacademy.com/Fudo, F-U-D-O, hyphen, Fudo Myo webinar. I think. If I'm missing something, there is between these hyphen and that one, there's another OH. Myo is the full name, right? So Fudo Myo webinar. And if it's not webinar, then it's seminar. I can't jump off of this thing and look at the moment. I apologize, but there's that. Let's see, August 3rd, and all these times are Eastern standards or Eastern time, so Eastern daylight, whatever it is now for your conversion, right? So August 3rd from noon to 5, we are doing an introduction to the katana, because to understand the ninjato and to understand how to do the muto dori and all that, you need to understand the basics of how this damn thing works. So I'm doing a 5-hour thing. If you're local, by all means come in for the live stuff, because the last hour and a half or so, we're doing live cutting. Right? I mean, I'm not cutting live people, but you get the idea. We're doing cutting. If you're on the virtual, we'll still have everything set up, but what you'll be listening to is the hints and tips and stuff like that for people to do things better. But we're covering kamae, we're covering mindset, we're covering parts of the weapon, 9-directional cutting. I think there's 9 kamae that I'm giving you. And some basics, right, for parrying and being safe and those kind of things, right? So hopefully you can make it, right? And again, I've been posting. If you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube or whatever, the posts are popping up. So try to catch all of those things. These things are way inexpensive. In November 8th to the 10th, that's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we're doing our fall camp. The theme this year is body, mind, spirit integration, but that doesn't mean holistic like me as a person. We're looking at the body, the physical technique, the mind, the psychology and the strategy and whatnot that are in it, and the spirit, the intent, the energy and whatnot, the three parts, the three bodies of every technique, okay? And how they're all there at the same time. So hopefully you can make that. And then our Daikomyo-sai is in January because the holidays just get in the way and everybody and their friggin' brother does Daikomyo-sai at the same time because, well, that's Hatsumi Sensei's birthday. I get it. But everybody's also bitching and complaining that they don't get enough people showing up for Daikomyo-sai. Right? Here in the US anyway, we're right between Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, and then his birthday is December 3rd and whatnot. So we just do it right after the New Year. So this year it's January 10th, 11th, and 12th. I don't have the theme picked out yet, but I'll let you know. So if you're on our email list, then you'll get this stuff. If not, you need to make sure you're subscribed and stuff so these little bulletins go out. On the community tab, if you're on YouTube. Otherwise, if you're on Facebook, then on online ninjutsu training, that page, Kuden podcast page, or my personal page. Either way. Right? That's it. That's what I have. I'm going to stop talking. I'll talk to you guys again next time.